This is Heart.
When lockdown happened, Andrei, what did obviously you must have been gutted like any businessman would, but certainly with restaurants that people love as yours are, what was your first reaction to lockdown and the fact that you'd have to close?
Well, we actually took the decision to close before lockdown because it became very clear in the week leading up to lockdown that the general public took it upon themselves to pretty much go into a state of lockdown prior to the government stipulating lockdown. And on that Monday, Tuesday, when we were, like the rest of the industry, wondering not why are we so quiet, but what's going to happen next, I took the decision on that Tuesday, Wednesday to close. And then within 30 hours, initially we turned to the NHS, we turned to East Herts Trust, which has 3 hospitals, and said, I'm aware there are problems in London with supplying and facilitating meals for key workers. I've got 6 kitchens, 100 staff. Let's put them to work and we'll find an answer. And John, the problem is with any of these big institutional communities essentially is that they have very good ideas, but they work very slowly in getting things done, which is I suppose understandable. But it didn't happen. So I think within 24 hours of having that conversation, I thought to myself, let's be pragmatic about it. Let's not wait for them to knock on our door. So it took 30 hours to turn the Lussmanns site into an e-commerce site.
How do you strip your menu down? Because obviously you can't do a full-on menu that you would do in a restaurant. How do you decide what's best to put on the menu?
On the food to go, it was more about working out what items travel well. So, when you produce food, that's one thing in a restaurant. But when you have to learn how to package, you have to learn how to pick, and then you have to learn to deliver, you suddenly realize that 75% of food to go, we had no idea what we were doing. And in any business, if you don't know 75% of what you're doing, the word on the street is don't get involved. But anyway, we did get involved and moved very quickly on it. And in terms of the food to go element of what we could sell as a menu item, it became very clear that items would need development, would need to play with them. So, I had senior staff in the company working on various dishes, not producing them, but working on, you've got a microwave, you've got an oven, you've got a fan assisted oven. Let's all work on how that particular dish works in your kitchen. Unfortunately, things like lasagna and melanzane and curries, work very well. But the minute you work with salads and fresh items, they are a disaster unless you can tin fill them and vacuum pack them.
I was going to say, was there any favourites with the food to go?
Yes.
With what was top of the list?
Yeah, we think things like our free-range Tuscan chicken, which has never been on the menu. We came up with that dish, and people loved it. Our fish cake, we actually did a lot of research and development on it, and we took a lot of fish cakes from various other well-known retailers, both frozen and fresh, and said, right, how can we make ours better? And it's things like, adding a bit of turmeric to the breadcrumbs to give it that golden colour. I mean, the great that the fish is MSC, wonderful that it's fresh and all the rest of it, but there's no good having a fish cake that's got white breadcrumbs, because the minute you take it out of the oven, you'll say to yourself, that's awful, because we eat with our eyes.
It's a whole different set of rules, isn't it? Because when I come into Lussmanns restaurant, I sit down and I know how long I'll be sitting there before someone asks me about a drink, and then I'll know roughly when my starter is going to arrive and when my food's going to arrive, how it's going to look. I've got all those expectations, and that works. Now you're dealing with me at home, and you've got all these unknowns, totally, haven't you? I mean, it's a totally different world.
Yes, and I suppose one of the defining successes of Lussmanns has been our service for years. Well, John, I can't be there to open the packet for you and put it onto your plate and put my arm around your shoulder and say, I hope you enjoy it. Because I'd like to, but I can't. Which means when the food arrives, you're suddenly realizing that all the important fluff, all the important service component disappears. So you're left with essentially a white box and what's in it.
And how are you finding the restaurants now with all the new regulations that are in place? You're obviously not as busy as you were, but how is that actually going?
Well, it's good to open, John. I think it's really important to open. As I said, I think restaurants, more than shops, more than churches, more than anywhere, more than gyms, are very, very safe. We know how to clean. We know how to look after people. It's something that restaurants in general, hospitality, has perfected over generations and hundreds of years. This is what we do for a living. Yeah. But I'm looking forward to going out somewhere, and I can cope with someone wearing a visor and me having to take my dish off a tray, no problem.
Right, we need to find out now Andrei Lussmann's favourite food. So can you give me your favourite, if you were going out to eat, your favourite starter, your main course, your pudding, what would you go for?
Oh my God.
And it doesn't have to be what you serve in your restaurants.
Okay.
You personally.
Favorite. Okay. Main course, fish off the grill. That's it. Piece of mackerel. It doesn't matter. Off the grill with some fresh lemon.
Nice.
Starter. That's one of ours. Hunter's linguine, some pancetta, a bit of rabbit, wild mushrooms, good parmesan. Pudding. Anything chocolate. And there we go. I mean, I'm very simple and I'm very easy pleased.
I love it. I wish you the best luck with the restaurants and with the food to go. It's been fascinating.
Cheers, John.
This is Heart.